Donald Duck by Karan. Also, in the description or as an annotation will be a link to the entire comic. I suggest you read the entire comic first, so what I say will make more sense. In this video, I'll be analyzing The Doomed Diamond, which is a comic part of the Donald Duck series by Carl Barks. This comic focuses on an adventure of Uncle Scrooge. I'll focus on two sets of characters, Uncle Scrooge and the Beagle Boys. I'll talk about the narrative too, the facial expressions and body postures too. Here we have the Beagle Boys. They're a gang of criminals always trying to rob Uncle Scrooge. They're the main antagonists of the story. They never tend to think small, therefore it is unlike of them to use such small schemes such as the one presented in the story, or in the start of the story, as it seems utterly useless to steal so little money. They might as well have stolen money from parking meters. But they don't think small, and this is shown by how the story progresses and how they make a plan to steal the world's biggest diamond and build an anti pirate ship. In this next page, we add to how the Beagle Boys are. The Beagle Boys add comedy to the comic with lines like, "Open up in there, I'm an inspector from Fishy," which is a clever acronym for Federal Inspectors of Seacocks, Hulls, and Yard Arms. This also shows how the Beagle Boys are always trying to be cunning and ahead of Uncle Scrooge. This also shows that an archetype used in the story is the fake inspector. This is how we normally perceive what an inspector is. And gullible as Uncle Scrooge is, he falls for the trick. And then in this next slide, or page, sorry, we learn also more things. The Beagle Boys are never pure villains. There's some humanity to them, and makes them easier to relate to. If they were pure villains, they would never go back and save Uncle Scrooge. They would have left him to die no matter what the cost. Now, Donald Duck is all about stereotypes. Every character is a stereotype. The Beagle Boys are stereotypes of a gang based off the gangs of the time of Carl Barks or before, and Uncle Scrooge is a stereotype of rich people. And here in this page you can see how stereotypes are used. In some of the other Donald Duck comics there are stereotypes on cowboys and many other things, but in this one it's on the Middle Eastern Arabic world. The king is sitting in a mansion. Of course he has a stereotypical turban on, stereotypically smoking from what could be a water pipe or some other kind of pipe. He has a slave woman functioning as a fan to cool him down. They might as well have added another slave woman who stands there and drops grapes into his mouth. And then he has another slave who's also stereotypically dressed with the hat and the beard. But very interestingly, in one of the panels is the gargoyle / demon type statues, as if to suggest that this world is freakish or evil. This goes with the title of the story, The Doomed Diamond. Now, as I said before, Scrooge is a stereotypical rich man. He is extremely greedy, constantly lucky, does not trust people. He's cheap and has a temper. In the first panel we can see how upset he gets when the birds are stealing next to nothing. They're stealing the coins, but in the rest of the picture we give the idea it gives the reader an idea of just how much wealth there is in there. It's irrational for him to get so upset with the birds stealing so little money. This relates back to him being cheap, extremely greedy, shows his temper. In the second panel, he says, "They're stealing quarters and half dollars. Yes, with all the windows leaking jaybirds, I lose a pint of money each day," with pint being bold. This goes to show how greedy he is. When asked in the next panel why he does not hire guards, expenses of hiring a guard arises, which would be the last thing you would expect from a stereotypical rich man. Again, shows how cheap he is. This is especially emphasized in the next panel, in which he says, "It's cheaper to battle the thieves like this. Besides, I get lots of healthy exercise," which clearly shows how cheap he is. Now, in the plot of the story, he goes on to collect this diamond himself and deliver the money himself for the diamond. This goes to show how he trusts absolutely no one. Now, the plot story also starts to begin in the next panel, where we discover why Uncle Scrooge is going to buy the biggest diamond in the world. If you thought it was for decoration, you were wrong. If you thought it was to show off, you're partially right. He does indeed want to show the rest of the world, but there's a catch. There will be a fee. He says people would pay money to see it, and then he calculates how much admission he would make. Now in the next panel, after the long journey across the ocean, and after being attacked by pirates in the form of the Beagle Boys, all Uncle Scrooge can still think of is the profitability of the diamond. You would think he would be concerned with the journey home, but he truly is greedy. In the last panel, on this side, I chose it because it shows his temper again. He says, "Well, now have a war," which shows how angry he can get because he lost his diamond to the Beagle Boys. Also, a note to make was this was the last Uncle Scrooge comic by Carl Barks. It clearly shows how Uncle Scrooge acts in most of the other comics and his characteristics. Lastly, the story uses Todorov's equilibrium-disequilibrium. The story starts in equilibrium, the things being the way they are. Then an agent of disruption comes in, the doomed diamond. But in the end of the day, all goes back to normal. All is equilibrium. The story ends the way it started. There's a saying from some of the Uncle Scrooge comics: Scrooge gets all his money back and all is as it was before. It's a message that sometimes appears at the end of the comics, which shows Todorov's equilibrium-disequilibrium. They start off with Jaybird stealing a pint of money, everything was fine, it was normal, and then disequilibrium comes with the doomed diamond, and then in the end it all goes back to the way it was in the start. Everything's equal again. And also the use of panels in the story, which, although it's not anything extraordinary, it's just quite normal. For example, in the top panel of this page, the panel is wider to signify that longer time has passed before it goes to the next panel. Also, body expressions and facial postures are used to show something about the character, but they're always extreme. Like in the second last panel, you can see Uncle Scrooge. He looks miserable. He looks tired. He looks exhausted, and he is exhausted after running around. But they just made his body posture and facial expression extreme to show that. And the last one, you can see how relaxed the Beagle Boys are. How the position is a stereotypical, extreme, relaxed position to show that they're relaxed and they're glad that everything is back to equilibrium. And this was also, might have been one of Carl Barks' last Donald Duck comics. And this kind of shows his whole journey too. Like now, it started off easily, then it became bigger and bigger, and now he can relax again, kind of like the Beagle Boys. That was it. Thank you for listening.